The massive chamber stretched before Ambassador Kim Ji-woo, like a cathedral made of living crystal. 12 different alien species sat in judgment, their forms ranging from towering insectoids to floating energy beings. The air itself seemed to vibrate with ancient power and barely contained hostility. Ji-woo stood completely alone in the center of the circular room. His black diplomatic suit felt inadequate against the alien technology surrounding him. Above his head, holographic displays showed images of human colonies across the galaxy, bustling cities, mining operations, research stations, all of it about to be lost. The lead judge was a Velthari, a creature that looked like a massive praying mantis crossed with a spider. Its 3 compound eyes focused on Ji-woo with the intensity of a predator studying prey. When it spoke, its voice echoed through translation devices that made every word sound like a death sentence. The species known as humans has committed major violations of galactic law, the judge announced. Its mandibles clicked together with each word. Unauthorized expansion into restricted systems. Massive resource depletion on colony worlds. Refusal to acknowledge the authority of established galactic order. Ji-woo kept his breathing steady. He had trained for this moment for years, but nothing could have prepared him for the weight of representing all of humanity before these ancient powers. Behind the judges, he could see screens showing Earth his home, his family, billions of innocent people who had no idea their fate was being decided in this chamber. Honored members of the tribunal, Ji-woo began, his voice carrying clearly across the vast space. Humanity has always sought peaceful coexistence with all galactic civilizations. We have established trade relationships, shared our technology and culture. We have harmed no sentient species during our expansion. A sound like breaking glass filled the chamber. It took Ji-woo a moment to realize it was laughter from the Morden representative. The crystalline being's form shifted colors, from blue to angry red as it responded. Peace. The alien's voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Your species breeds without control and consumes resources like locusts. You expand into system after system, taking whatever you want without asking permission. You are parasites that will eventually devour everything. Another judge, this one resembling a massive jellyfish floating in a tank of liquid, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as it spoke. The evidence is overwhelming. Human population growth threatens the ecological balance of 17 systems. Your mining operations have stripped 3 worlds bare of minerals that took millions of years to form. Ji-woo felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool temperature in the chamber. We follow all established environmental protocols. Our population centers use advanced recycling and sustainable energy. We have never taken resources from inhabited worlds. The law is clear, the Velthari judge interrupted with a sharp click of its mandibles. All expansion by younger species must be approved by this tribunal. Humanity ignored this requirement and continued growing without permission. The other judges began speaking in overlapping voices, creating a chorus of condemnation. Accusations flew about human arrogance, their refusal to submit to galactic authority, their dangerous potential for future growth. Ji-woo realized with growing horror that the decision had already been made before he ever entered this chamber. This was not a trial, it was a sentencing. The Velthari judge raised one of its sharp appendages, and silence fell instantly across the chamber. The tribunal has reached its decision. The human species poses a clear and present danger to galactic stability. Therefore, we impose the following sanctions. The holographic displays around the chamber shifted to show star charts and fleet positions. Ji-woo's heart sank as he realized the scope of what was coming. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be evacuated within 72 standard hours. Any humans remaining after this deadline will be considered criminals and dealt with. Accordingly, the images showed massive alien fleets already moving toward human settlements. Ji-woo thought of the families on those worlds, the children who had been born among the stars and never seen Earth. Furthermore, the Sol system will be placed under complete quarantine. No human vessel will be permitted to leave. Any attempt to break this blockade will result in immediate destruction. The chamber filled with approving sounds from the various alien representatives. To them, this was justice. To Jiwoo, it was the death of everything humanity had worked to build among the stars. Trade with human settlements is hereby forbidden. All communication channels to Sol system will be permanently severed. Humanity will remain isolated until they learn to control their expansion and submit to proper galactic authority. As the final words echoed through the crystal chamber, Jiwoo felt the weight of absolute defeat. Everything humanity had achieved in space would be lost. But, as the judges began filing out, dismissing him like an unpleasant memory, Jiwoo made one final gesture. His fingers found the small diplomatic badge on his lapel. Hidden within its simple design was technology no alien had ever detected. A single quantum transmitter that had been waiting 30 years for this exact moment. With a barely perceptible movement, Jiwoo activated the device. An untraceable pulse of energy shot across space toward Earth. Racing through dimensions the aliens didn't even know existed. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, in a facility that officially did not exist, ancient computers stirred to life. Warning lights began flashing in empty corridors. The Vengeance Protocol was finally active. Humanity had always hoped for peace, but they had prepared for war. The elevator descended through solid rock for what felt like forever. Dr. Park. Minji watched the depth counter climb higher as they went, deeper into the earth. 3 miles down, through Antarctic ice and stone, past layers that had been frozen for millions of years. Her breath came out in white puffs, despite the heating systems running at full power. When the doors finally opened, Minji stepped into a world that officially did not exist. Facility Lazarus stretched out before her like an underground city. Corridors carved from bedrock led in every direction. The walls hummed with hidden technology that had been waiting in silence for 30 years. Red warning. Lights flashed everywhere. After decades of quiet darkness, the facility was finally alive. Minji could hear the sound of boots running on metal floors, urgent voices calling out reports, and the electronic beeping of computers coming online for the first time in years. She walked quickly through the main corridor toward the command center. Along the way, she passed rooms filled with equipment she hoped humanity would never need to use. Weapons that could crack planets. Communication arrays that could reach across the galaxy instantly. Manufacturing systems that could build an entire fleet in months. The command center doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, dozens of technicians sat at workstations that glowed with holographic displays. Maps of the galaxy rotated slowly in the air, showing the positions of alien fleets, human colonies, and secret installations that no one outside this room knew existed. Colonel Lee Dong-yuk looked up as she entered. His face was lined with years of worry and planning. He had been preparing for this day since he was a young officer, back when humanity first made contact with alien civilizations. Status report, Mingi said as she approached his station. The signal came through clean, Dong-yuk replied, pointing to a display showing signal patterns. All our hidden assets received the activation code. We have sleeper cells responding from 17 different alien worlds. Minji nodded as she studied the incoming reports. Green dots appeared on the galaxy map as each cell confirmed they were ready. These were humans who had lived among aliens for years, some for decades. They had learned alien languages, adopted alien customs, and gained positions of trust in alien society, all while waiting for this moment. "What about our monitoring systems?" she asked. "Fully operational," another technician called out from across the room. "Deep space arrays are tracking every alien ship movement. We can see their fleets forming up around our colonies. Looks like they plan to start the evacuation by force if necessary." Minji felt a cold anger building in her chest. The aliens thought humanity was helpless. They believed that 30 years of peaceful cooperation meant humans were weak and unable to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Communications with our agents?" she asked. "Perfect," Dong-yuk said. "Quantum channels are completely invisible to alien detection systems. We can coordinate simultaneous operations across the entire galaxy without them knowing we are even talking to each other." Minji walked to the center of the room where a massive holographic display showed the current political situation across alien space. Each civilization was marked with different colors showing their government type, military strength, and current alliance status. But there were other markers too, secret information that humanity had been gathering for decades. "Show me the Zilithian Empire," she said. The display zoomed in on a cluster of star systems, controlled by the Zilithians. These aliens looked like elegant humanoids, but they had ruled their empire for thousands of years. Most people believed their leaders were wise immortals, who guided their civilization with ancient wisdom. Agent Park Sunwoo has been working as a government records keeper on their capital world for 12 years, Dong-yuk explained. He has documented how their ruling class really stays immortal. They have been secretly harvesting biological material from their own lower classes. Millions of deaths hidden from the general population. Minji smiled grimly. "Perfect. What about the Morden Collective?" Another section of the galaxy appeared on screen. The Morden were crystalline beings who claimed to be the most spiritual civilization in the galaxy. Their entire culture was based on religious purity and following ancient sacred texts. Agent Kim Sola has been posing as a religious scholar for 15 years, another technician reported. She discovered that their sacred texts were completely made up by a group of priests who wanted to control the population. The real history of their species shows they were originally violent conquerors who rewrote their past to seem more noble. "Excellent," Minji said, and the others. Reports came in from across the room. Every major alien civilization had secrets that would destroy them if revealed to their own people. Corrupt officials stealing from their citizens. Military leaders selling weapons to enemies. Religious authorities living in luxury while their followers suffered in poverty. Hidden slave operations. Secret experiments on their own species. For 30 years, humanity had been gathering this information, not through violence or theft, but by earning trust and being invited into alien society. The aliens had shared their secrets with humans. They considered friends and allies. They never imagined those same humans were carefully documenting every crime and lie. "Initiate Phase 1, Minji ordered. Across the galaxy, human agents began uploading information to alien communication networks. Not random data dumps, but carefully planned releases designed to cause maximum chaos. Each piece of evidence was timed to appear simultaneously across multiple worlds, making it impossible to suppress or deny. The truth was about to set the galaxy free, whether the aliens wanted it or not. The first reports came from Zalethia Prime, at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time. Agent Park Sunwoo had uploaded terabytes of government records to every major news network simultaneously. Within minutes, billions of Zalithian citizens were reading documents that proved their immortal emperor was a monster. The evidence was undeniable. For 3,000 years, Emperor Valthurian had maintained his youth by secretly draining the life force from his own people. Government facilities labeled as medical centers were actually harvesting farms. Millions of lower-class citizens had been killed to keep one man alive, and their families had been told they died from disease. The reaction was immediate and violent. In the capital city of Morthalan, crowds of angry Zalithians surrounded the imperial palace. They carried the bodies of loved ones who had mysteriously died after visiting government medical facilities. Ancient temples dedicated to the emperor began burning as citizens realized their god was actually a parasite feeding on their lives. The emperor's royal guards tried to maintain order, but many threw down their weapons when they learned the truth. Some had lost family members to the harvesting programs. Others simply could not bring themselves to protect someone who had murdered millions of innocent people. Similar chaos erupted on 12 other Zilithian worlds as the same evidence appeared everywhere at once. The mighty empire that had ruled 4 millennia began tearing itself apart in a single day. On the other side of the galaxy, the Morden Collective faced their own devastating revelation. Agent Choi Sun-ho had spent 15 years earning the trust of their highest religious authorities. He had studied their sacred texts, participated in their ceremonies, and gained access to their most holy archives. What he found there destroyed everything the crystalline beings believed about themselves. The Morden based their entire civilization on spiritual purity. Their sacred texts taught that they were chosen by divine forces to bring peace and wisdom to the galaxy. Every aspect of their society followed religious laws that were supposedly thousands of years old, but the real historical records told a different story. The Morden had originally been violent conquerors who destroyed dozens of civilizations. When their victims finally united against them, the Morden rewrote their entire history to avoid punishment. They created fake sacred texts and pretended to be a peaceful, spiritual people. When this information flooded their communication networks, the reaction was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Morden were crystalline beings who could literally shatter from emotional trauma. Across their homeworld, millions of them began breaking apart as their fundamental beliefs crumbled. The sound was horrifying, like 1,000 glass factories exploding at once. Entire cities filled with the musical ringing of crystalline bodies, destroying themselves rather than face the truth about their past. Commander Yoon Seongmin watched these events unfold from his hidden position in the asteroid belt near Proxima Centauri. His ship, the Aegis Shadow, was completely invisible to alien sensors. It had been built using technology reverse-engineered from crashed alien vessels over the past 30 years. "Sir, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy," his communications officer said. "The information warfare is working perfectly. All major alien civilizations are dealing with internal chaos." Seongmin studied the tactical displays, showing alien fleet movements. The massive armada that had been sent to blockade human colonies was falling apart. Ships were receiving emergency recall orders as their home systems descended into civil war and revolution. "Look at this," his sensor operator called out. "The Valtari Third Fleet is breaking formation. They are receiving orders to return home immediately to deal with separatist uprisings." Seongmin smiled for the first time in months. The Valtari were insect-like aliens who had been among the most vocal supporters of humanity's punishment. Their rigid military hierarchy was crumbling as evidence emerged of massive corruption in their officer ranks. "What about the other fleets?" he asked. "Same story everywhere," came the reply. The Aquarian Empire just recalled 2 entire battle groups to deal with slave revolts. The hegemony of suns is fighting a 3-way civil war after their citizens learned about secret weapons testing on civilian populations. The alien blockade was dissolving before humanity even fired a single shot. 30 years of careful intelligence gathering was paying off in ways the aliens never could have imagined. "Sir," the communications officer said urgently, "we are receiving activation codes from command. Phase 2 is authorized." Seongman's expression turned cold and dangerous. "Signal all hidden assets. Begin Phase 2 operations immediately." Across the galaxy, humanity's secret fleet began emerging from hiding places that had concealed them for decades. Ships built inside asteroids powered up their engines. Vessels hidden in nebulae activated their weapon systems. Space stations disguised as mining platforms revealed their true nature as military bases. The aliens had spent 30 years believing that humanity was weak and compliant. They thought humans had accepted their place as junior members of galactic civilization. They never suspected that Earth had been preparing for war from the very first day of alien contact. Now, it was time to show them what humanity could really do when pushed too far. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were very good at holding grudges, and even better at planning revenge. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Kong Hoon-woo stood perfectly still on the bridge of the EG's Retribution as warning alarms filled the air around him. Through the massive viewing screen, he could see them coming. 200 alien warships, arranged in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun like deadly jewels. For 30 years, the aliens had believed humans were a weak species that could barely manage space travel. They thought Earth's military consisted of a few primitive ships and outdated weapons. They were about to discover how catastrophically wrong they had been. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is entering the outer system," reported Lieutenant Park Ji-hoon from the sensor station. "They are maintaining standard approach formation. No signs. They suspect our true capabilities." Hyun-woo nodded calmly. The alien commanders were following their traditional battle tactics, the same tactics humanity had been studying and preparing counters for since first contact. Every alien species had rigid military doctrines that they never changed. It made them predictable, and predictable enemies were easy to defeat. "Tactical status report," he ordered. Commander Nam Jisoo looked up from her station, her eyes bright with anticipation. "All defense platforms are online and ready. Lunar surface batteries are fully charged. Asteroid field mine networks are armed and waiting for activation codes." Around the bridge, dozens of officers worked at stations that looked like standard human technology. But hidden beneath the familiar interfaces were systems built using alien technology that humanity had been secretly reverse engineering for decades. Every crashed alien ship, every captured piece of equipment, every technical manual obtained through espionage had been studied and improved upon. "What about our hidden assets?" Hyun-woo asked. "Mars shipyard is ready to reveal itself on your command," Jisoo replied. "Jupiter's moons have been converted into weapons platforms. Even the asteroid belt mining stations are actually automated defense systems." The alien fleet continued its approach, completely unaware they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. Their sensors showed them exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a primitive world with basic defenses and a handful of outdated ships. "Sir, they are beginning their attack run," the communications officer announced. "Standard intimidation formation. They expect us to surrender immediately." Hyun-woo allowed himself a small smile. "Show them what we really built out here. Activate all defense systems." What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy's power balance shifted forever. The moon's surface began to crack and split apart like an eggshell. Massive weapon arrays rose from beneath the lunar rock, revealing that humanity had spent 3 decades turning Earth's natural satellite into a fortress. Particle beam cannons the size of skyscrapers rotated toward the approaching alien fleet in the asteroid belt. What the aliens had assumed were simple mining operations suddenly came alive with deadly purpose. Hundreds of automated defense platforms emerged from hollowed-out rocks, their weapons already charging. Missile launchers that had been disguised as or processing equipment began targeting the enemy ships. But the biggest surprise was Mars itself. The red planet's surface split apart along hidden seams, revealing that the entire world had been converted into a massive military shipyard. Hundreds of warships that the aliens didn't even know existed began rising from underground hangars, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and weapons. "My God," whispered one of the alien commanders on an intercepted communication channel. "What have they built?" The alien fleet's confident advance immediately turned into confused retreat as they realized the true scope of Earth's defenses. But it was already too late. They had flown directly into the center of humanity's trap. "Captain Hong Min-ho, you are cleared for attack," Hyun-woo announced into his communicator. From hidden positions throughout the solar system, Squadrons of human fighters emerged like angry wasps from disturbed nests. These weren't the simple ships the aliens expected. They were adaptive combat vessels that could learn and counter enemy tactics in real time. Captain Minho led the first wave of fighters as they swarmed toward the alien fleet. His ship's computers were already analyzing alien weapon patterns and adjusting defensive systems automatically. Within minutes, his fighters were dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Target their command vessels first, Admiral Hunwoo ordered over the battle communication network. Every alien species follows rigid military hierarchies. Remove their leadership, and their coordination falls apart. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Alien ships that had dominated space for millennia found themselves completely outmatched by human technology that adapted faster than their computers could calculate countermeasures. The Valthari battlecruisers, famous for their impenetrable shields, watched in horror as human weapons simply recalibrated their frequencies to punch through the barriers. Modern crystal ships that could phase through solid matter found themselves trapped by human tractor beams that operated on previously unknown principles. Within 6 hours, the mighty alien armada was either destroyed or fleeing back toward their home systems. The few surviving ships carried news that would shock the entire galaxy. Humanity was not the weak species they had pretended to be, but the real victory wasn't happening in Earth's solar system. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations were tearing themselves apart as the truth about their corrupt governments spread through their populations. The proud Galactic Tribunal could no longer maintain their united front when their member species were fighting civil wars on their home worlds. Humanity had won without conquering a single alien planet. They had simply forced the galaxy to face the truth about itself. The crystalline chamber looked exactly the same as it had 6 months ago, but everything else had changed completely. The same ancient walls, the same floating platforms, the same holographic displays, but now the aliens knelt where humans had once stood in judgment. President Shin Jiho walked slowly across the polished floor toward the center of the room. His footsteps echoed in the silence as 12 alien representatives watched him with expressions ranging from fear to desperate hope. These were the survivors, the few alien leaders whose governments had managed to avoid complete collapse during the chaos that followed humanity's revelation of their secrets. Behind Jiho, massive holographic displays showed the current state of the galaxy. The images were not pleasant for the alien delegates to see. The Zilithian Empire, once proud and mighty, had split into 7 different warring factions. Their immortal emperor was dead, killed by his own people when they learned the truth about his crimes. Now their worlds burned with civil war as different groups fought for control. The Morden Collective had suffered an even worse fate. The crystalline beings, unable to cope with learning that their entire spiritual culture was built on lies, had engaged in mass suicide on a scale never before seen in galactic history. Entire worlds lay silent now, covered with the shattered remains of billions of beings who chose death over the truth about their past. The Aquarian Empire has requested human peacekeeping forces on 14 of their worlds, reported one of Jiho's advisors quietly. Their slave population revolted after learning about the breeding programs. The government can no longer maintain control. Jiho nodded as he reached the center of the chamber. This was the exact spot where Ambassador Kim Ji-woo had stood 6 months ago, pleading for humanity's right to exist among the stars. Now the positions were completely reversed. Representatives of the former Galactic Tribunal, Jiho began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 6 months ago, you sat in judgment of humanity. You declared us dangerous and sentenced our entire species to isolation and eventual extinction. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. The Valthari representative, a different individual than the one who had condemned humanity, kept its compound eyes fixed on the floor. The floating hegemony ambassador's energy field flickered nervously. You believed that age gave you wisdom, Jiho continued. You thought that because your civilizations were older, you were automatically superior to humanity. You assumed that our 30 years of peaceful cooperation meant we were weak and helpless. Dr. Park Minji watched from the observation deck above the main chamber. Next to her stood Colonel Lee Dong-yuk and the other architects of the Vengeance Protocol. They had planned for this moment for decades, but seeing it actually happen still felt surreal. The Karelian Republic is completely gone, Dong-yuk whispered to her as he read reports on his tablet. Their population discovered that their democratic government was actually controlled by a secret council of immortals, who had been manipulating elections for centuries. The entire civilization tore itself apart in 3 days. Minji nodded grimly. The truth was a powerful weapon, but sometimes it destroyed everything it touched. Not all alien civilizations had been able to survive learning about their own corruption. However, President Jiho said, his tone becoming slightly more gentle, humanity is not here for revenge. We are here to offer you a choice. The alien representatives looked up with cautious hope. They had expected execution or enslavement, not negotiation. Those civilizations that have requested our assistance have found that human leadership brings stability and prosperity, Jiho explained. We do not rule through fear or deception. We govern through competence and merit. We protect the weak and punish the corrupt. On the holographic displays, new images appeared, showing alien worlds under human administration. The planets looked peaceful and prosperous. Cities were being rebuilt, populations were fed and healthy, and there was no sign of the chaos that had consumed other parts of the galaxy. The choice is simple, Jiho continued. You can join the new galactic order under human leadership, contributing your species' knowledge and abilities to the common good. Or you can remain isolated in your remaining systems, dealing with your internal problems alone. One by one, the alien delegates approached the center of the chamber to sign formal treaties. The documents were written in simple, clear language, with no hidden clauses or legal tricks. Humanity's terms were straightforward: cooperation in exchange for protection and prosperity. Will you shut down the Vengeance Protocol now? Colonel Dong-yuk asked Dr. Mingi as they watched the signing ceremony. Mingi was quiet for a long moment, considering the question carefully. The automated systems that had orchestrated the galaxy-wide information warfare campaign were still running, still gathering intelligence from every corner of known space. The automated revenge systems, yes, she finally answered. Those can be shut down, but the intelligence network stays active. The galaxy needs to remember that humanity doesn't forget betrayal, and we don't forgive easily. Through the observation deck windows, Minji could see human ships patrolling the space around the tribunal station. They were not conquest vessels, but protector ships, ensuring that the new order remained stable. Earth had never wanted to rule the galaxy. Humans had been perfectly happy exploring, trading, and building peaceful relationships with alien civilizations. But when those civilizations chose to treat humanity as a threat to be eliminated, they had forced Earth to become exactly what they feared: the dominant power in galactic affairs. The stars now belonged to humanity, not through conquest, but through the careful application of truth and justice, served very, very cold.